Welcome, Dr. Woods. I hope you're having a great day so far and that you have had a chance to enjoy this summer just a little bit with all the coursework. I would like to inform you that I have never done a presentation in this concept before, and although it was very fun and challenging, I definitely bit off more than I could chew, especially with having a perfection complex. But I am also an amateur at best with this media management. So I do apologize ahead of time for any audio quality or awkward gaps or pauses in the presentation. I tried to smooth this out as best as I could, but this is the first time that I've ever really used this format and this technology. But today I want to talk to you about a fictional business idea to demonstrate my perception of personal branding in a professional environment. Although the business entity is not real, it does strongly resemble what I see myself pursuing after my time in the military has concluded. I will discuss my personal background, unique qualities and experiences, and what I feel really gives me a strong competitive edge. So without further delay, let's jump right in. Welcome to Culver Consulting Services, a business created to impact leadership development at every tier. Using proven process analysis techniques, one-on-one leader and mentor development coaching, hands-on live interaction workshops, and practical exercises that are going to test and stress your operational systems to ensure that they are enduring and efficient. Our practical applications have been proven to work in the executive industry, local small businesses, both conventional and special operations communities of the military, public education in the primary and secondary settings, as well as competitive sports ranging from middle school up to the collegiate and professional levels. Our team will help offer unique approaches to challenge your leaders in their personal workspace, their emotional intelligence, the decision-making processes, as well as promote personal and professional reflection to help them find out what elements within themselves offer the most potential for success, but more importantly, for those around them to be willing to follow their lead. As I break down the approach to establishing my personal brand, I want to make sure I highlight a small but very important list of topics. First, I want to introduce myself in both a personal and professional manner to give insight of the experiences that I have and the intricacies that make up the fiber of my character. This will lead into my collective values that establish my mission and my vision for taking what I know and the value that I believe I can offer to others to a much larger, more target-rich environment. I then want to look at what I feel sets me apart from an already highly competitive field of strategic leaders. What experiences and intellects do I possess that others don't? What have I done that they did not do or could not do? I'll conclude with what I feel is the future potential for my brand and sort of a vision that I have as a prospective business. Let's start with some background information. I have been blessed to serve in the United States Army for 18 years to this point. I started out at the lowest entry level possible as a private, and I've made my way up to a mid-level officer now. I have been all over the world, and I have encountered a multitude of lifestyles and civilizations. Before joining the military, however, I started my career out in law enforcement, working in a small department in Kansas. The disciplines and traditions of law enforcement have always intrigued me. In a profession where every person watches every little thing you do, both on and off work, you place yourself in a higher category of character compliance, and I think that was a challenge that I sought after. This is what you could refer to as the seeding of my leadership qualities as well. As a law enforcement officer, you learn quickly to master the skills of emotional intelligence, cognitive adaptability, but most importantly, how to read and react to those that you interact with. It was my experience in law enforcement that gave me the blessing in disguise when I enlisted into the Army. After basic training and arriving at my first duty station, I was immediately given a team leader spot as a private. Now, this is a position generally held by 2 to 3 ranks more senior than me. We were very short on manpower, and I had the opportunity to fall face first into a very steep learning curve of organizational leadership. I knew absolutely nothing about it, but what I did know was that using adaptation and situational awareness were going to help me not only survive, but grow. And from that point on, every position I have held in the military has been one of leadership, to include the one that I have now as a lead officer in the Operations, Intelligence, and Planning Cell. Through my time in the military, I made it a focal point to challenge myself in aspects of life that are outside of combat. Early on, I developed an affinity for sports and athletic performance. I've spent over 10 years working with civilian and government agencies on athletic performance research and practical application. I've had the pleasure of working with several collegiate and professional strength and conditioning coaches. Most notably would be Bobby Stroop, who is the lead trainer for Patrick Mahomes. I spent time with Special Operations Thor 3 program as well, which was geared towards training the elite soldier at a very high capacity level that would rival professional athletes and potentially even some Olympians. After a while, I decided to try and get credentialed in the realm of strength and conditioning. I studied for over a year, and on the first attempt, I received my Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist credentialing from the National Strength and Conditioning Association. Now, I routinely advertise this because I want people to know that I do not have an educational background in health and human performance. My college degree is in criminology. So I want everybody to know that I have a tenacious discipline that achieves the most efficient level of success that I can when I establish a goal with a purpose. It was in this sector as well that I learned probably one of the most unique lessons in leadership, and one that I still try to find out today. How do you establish influence or change in someone or something that is already operating at its highest potential level? Now, as I progressed in my military career, I began to have more key interactions with executive personnel, or the military's equivalent of the C-suiters, if you will. And with these encounters, I began to see the need to learn a new language. One of the greatest motivational speakers of our time, Eric Thomas, once said that he didn't go to college to learn academics. He went to learn the language of a lifestyle, the language of a society that he was trying to project himself into. And this is where I quickly learned that there's another realm of human-centric leadership that I had no experience with, and I needed some, and I needed it very soon. I want to take a moment to go into some of the founding principles that I devote myself to as I generate the future concepts of a leadership development-based consultation company. First, I want to establish the who. Now, I know Simon Sinek created a generational inspiration on addressing the why first, but I prefer to agree with author Rory Vaden when he said that the who can be just as, if not more, important than the why. The why is your reason for looking into what you're doing, but the who is the beneficiary of what you're doing. You can have a phenomenal approach to something life-changing, but if you do not have a targeted audience that can absorb your product, then it's nothing more than just an idea. With that said, I want to bring my experiences and my perspectives to both businesses small and large that not only struggle developing their own personal leadership strategy, but ones that fail to get the most out of those around them. I have seen multiple command structures fall apart because they lack social acuity and the ability to establish enduring change. They are either feel that it can only be done by them because that's the way that it can get done right, or they use empty, short-sighted tactics that promote compliance over commitment. This is what I refer to as the Peyton Manning syndrome. Not that Peyton Manning was this type of leader, but it is the application of his greatness. Peyton Manning had one of the greatest runs as a winning quarterback in NFL history. They were an unstoppable force when he was with the Colts. But the moment he went down, that team went from first to worst in 1 year. You cannot be the single point of failure or success in your organization. You have to establish something that is resilient and survivable without you there. To do this, you usually have to generate some kind of change. If you want to establish change, you're going to need 3 things: time, conviction, and accountability. You cannot change something overnight. It must have time to endure variables that can validate if the change is even working or not. You must have conviction that constitutes a lasting participation in the change environment, meaning you can't quit or immediately go to a new change to something else when you do not see acute results to a chronic problem. And lastly, You cannot achieve change without accountability. When change is required, it is because something that currently exists has failed. And 9 times out of 10, that failure can be attributed to a leadership element or individual, and that's when your egos and pride become the fall of effective influence. I truly believe in 3 standing principles that drive what I do and how I do it. The first is purpose. You have to have a purpose in anything that you do. If you don't know why you're doing something, the intellect behind it, or even the standard in which it should be done to be successful, then you are wasting not only your time, but the time of those that you're involved in your business and have invested in you. The second is character. You express the truth of your character through the choice of your actions. You need to promote accountability and reliability within yourself and those around you on a daily basis. Be a beacon of emotional restraint, situational awareness, and choosing ethical values over an egotistical gain. If you work well with others, they're going to strive to work with you again. Lastly, do not just strive to be a leader, but take on the responsibility of creating leaders around you. Inspire those you work with to take prudent risks while embracing innovative ways to handle situations. But don't let the confusion of innovation impede the mastery of the basics. Effective leaders master the basics to a point of failure. Give yourself unwinnable conditions that force you to function every basic technique that you have learned to a point of failure. Then you'll drive innovation. When what is current can no longer be effective, something new is born out of necessity. These principles are what I have used and will continue to use to launch my brand and the aspirations of an influential business that has a mission to establish resilient leadership practices grounded in both purpose and character to create lasting influence for individuals and businesses alike. I want to turn to the discussion of what gives me a competitive edge in the marketplace. I've already discussed briefly about my military experience and a few personal philosophies on leadership qualities. But what I want to express now is where all of this has been demonstrated in real-life practicality. A brand is not just personal perspectives or a way to self-advertise. It is something that must be founded in the beliefs of others of what you are. A brand is nothing if nobody else buys it, but more importantly, it's nothing if nobody else sells it. Now, in my line of work, I've been fortunate enough to have been given more and more autonomy to execute my practice of operational and organizational leadership in a variety of environments. When COVID-19 first came to light in Asia in the fall of 2019, I was stationed in South Korea, serving as a company commander of a 32-bed field hospital that was tasked with providing the U.S. military's first response to a civilian health crisis. This disease had less than 60 days of marketable knowledge that we could use to establish our response protocols. But within 72 hours, we had completely mobilized our unit to the southern province of South Korea and established what would be the U.S. military's first COVID screening, quarantine, isolation, and evacuation centers. Over the course of 6 months, I wrote no less than 5 major articles that outlined our daily assessments and change recommendations to combat what we knew at the time. Our initiatives were shared across several military and civilian authorities across multiple countries. Now, fast forward to 2023. Once again, I'm working as a medical operations and planning officer for another military field hospital here in Tennessee. I was approached by the Tennessee National Guard and some members of the Homeland Security to see if we could implement our healthcare assets into a natural disaster response exercise in downtown Nashville. This had never been done before, and it would require the synchronization of multiple civilian and government assets that had also never crossed paths before. Over the period of 9 months, I worked the plan to incorporate entities such as the Nashville SWAT team, the FBI Special Response Team, the members of FEMA and TEMA, the Task Force 46 from Army North, and multiple Tennessee National Guard units, as well as a variety of metropolitan hospitals across Middle Tennessee to be able to support this event. Upon completion, it was praised as the greatest medical training incorporation of our assets that the agencies had ever seen. Now, I say all this to quantify the skills and traits of leadership and large-scale organizational planning that I have and that I've spent years crafting. When someone says that something cannot be done, I see it as that something has just not been done by the right person yet. I pride myself in having incredible self-awareness and emotional intelligence, but more importantly, the ability to get the best out of those that I work with. A high tide will rise all ships, and strong leaders invoke greatness out of people even when that individual didn't have the aspirations to do so. It is these qualities that I feel strongly separates me from my peers. As I look to the future, I have great hopes for what I can build as a potential business venture. I have implemented proven strategies that have stood not only the test of time, but continuous personnel changeover, which is a frequent challenge in my line of work. And it's that same challenge that has taught me to understand that change and influence are not bound to one individual. The ability to establish lasting impact is a result of changing the current climate you work in. And with enough change in your climate, you can eventually influence a shift in your organizational culture. People often fall to being a product of their environment. It is the three elements of change, which is time, conviction, and accountability, that you can eventually make your environment a product of you and influence those beyond you. This business concept is just an idea at this time, but there is a need to incorporate coaching and mentoring of strategic leaders in our current workforce. As generational gaps become bigger, my experiences in the last true melting pot of the world, which is the military, gives me a valuable skill that can be applied to all businesses and leaderships at all levels. I want to thank you for letting me share my vision on what I feel will help continue to advance my personal brand into further professional success. There may always be somebody out there trying to outlearn or even outpromote me, but I can guarantee that nobody will ever outwork me. I stay hungry for great things, and to me, that is bringing the greatness out in others.